Thank you so much for this invitation. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so honored as a Christian to be invited to be with you. I'm concerned about peace and furthering something that we call spiritual friendships. Such a pleasure to address this very august convention. I always find it a great joy and a blessing to be with people who are dedicated to doing God's will. And in the short time that I've been with you, I've been touched by the hospitality that I have received, so thank you very much. My remarks are very short, but they have a title. It's called A Tale of Two Cities. I borrowed that, of course, from Charles Dickens. The two cities I'm referring to are American cities who have responded very differently to the current global threat posed by ISIS-ISIL. The first city is Garland, Texas, the site of the recent rally which was centered on promoting satirical cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. I think we all know the basic facts of what happened there. It was promoted as a free speech event. Yet very early, the organizers worked with the FBI, Homeland Security, local police to be prepared for acts which they were going to call terror. As they had seemingly planned, the event did draw two American Muslims who traveled from Arizona to act violently. Both Americans were killed, and there was much celebration by the promoters and even by the media. The story saddened and sickened me for various reasons. Firstly, I have been conducting interviews and entering spiritual friendships with American Muslims for the past 5 years, specifically on the topic of spiritual friendships. We have come to love one another, and so I felt the wound that such a rally would cause my friends. I share with them the belief that this was not a free speech rally, this was a hate speech rally. Its intention was to tell all American Muslims that they are not welcome in Garland, Texas. I was also sickened by the Garland, Texas story because we know that such rallies help ISIS-ISIL in their recruitment of young Americans between the ages of 18 and 29, their target age group. ISIS-ISIL loves such events as Garland, Texas, events that support their propaganda that America is not a welcoming or even a safe place for Muslims. Without seeming to realize it, the organizers of the Garland hate speech rally were doing exactly what ISIS-ISIL hopes will happen in our country. The second city that I have on my mind is Columbus, Indiana. It's a smaller city of about 40,000 people. It's about 20 miles from where I live and where I teach. The story of what happened there happened at the end of August 2014. It made some headlines, but nothing like Garland, Texas. On the last Sunday morning of August of 2014, members of 3 churches in Columbus awoke to find graffiti sprayed on the walls of their worship facilities. The words Quran and infidel were sprayed prominently on the walls of the churches, and the entire message was meant to look like the perpetrators were Muslims. Columbus, Indiana is a very unusual town for South Central Indiana. It is home of Cummins Engine Company, and it has become the home of many foreign nationals who work for this international firm. There are many people of faith other than Christians who live in Columbus and have come to love the city, a city that has embraced ethnic and religious diversity to a degree that is significant beyond other cities of South Central Indiana. Interfaith dialogue and programming in Columbus, Indiana is such a valued aspect of that city's story that Columbus Interfaith Forum has been the subject of a study by Harvard University. As the shock of what happened to the 3 churches in Columbus became known, those involved in the interfaith movement made a clear and compelling case that the perpetrators could not be Muslims, Rather, the crudeness of the messages was evidence that the perpetrators hated Muslims and were intent on spreading fear and anger in the Columbus community. Less than 24 hours after the attack, I received messages from friends in Columbus who requested that we organize a shoulder-to-shoulder in interfaith witness event in their community. Shoulder to Shoulder in Interfaith Witness is a movement that I was honored to co-found in 2012. Our mission is simple. We come together as diverse peoples of faith in a public setting whenever religion is misused for violent purposes. We come together to grieve, but we also come together to bear witness that our circle, shoulder to shoulder, represents the future of religions in our world. Furthermore, we believe in a public witness because we want the local media to cover the story and to hear our message. As always, the leaders of the interfaith movement in Columbus did a superb job in pulling this together. From the mayor, they received permission for us to meet on the steps of City Hall, and we set up about 50 chairs. Within 72 hours after the attacks on the churches, 250 people of all faiths showed up for the event. Speakers included Muslims from Columbus, imams from Indianapolis, human rights commissioners, and 2 of the 3 pastors whose churches were attacked. The pastors spoke about how Muslims had come in groups to their churches to clean off the graffiti. What I found most gratifying occurred after the program ended, when people stayed just to socialize across religious lines. And subsequent to that event, one of the churches that had been vandalized contacted Musafir Ahmad, a member of your community and a personal friend, asking him to talk to them about Islam and answer their questions. He had dinner with the group of about 30 church members and spoke to them about Islam and answered their questions for over 2 hours. They were very respectful of him, and they were so pleased to receive the support from the local Muslim community as to cleaning up their churches, including a check of $500 received from a Muslim in Indianapolis to pay for that cleanup. The perpetrators' vandalism in Columbus, Indiana clearly backfired. It was intended to tear the community apart. The perpetrators had drawn Columbus, actually drew that community closer together. In the end, love won in Columbus. Unfortunately, hate won in Garland, Texas. My last thought, what about the future? Muslims and Christians who are committed to peace must think strategically about what we're going to do with similar events as Garland, Texas. One is already being planned for Arizona. Others are likely to follow. We know that the media will cast a bright light on those hate speech events. We must strategize on how we can enter that media limelight as people of faith with a message of reason and compassion. Quickly, let me ask you to consider 2 things. As you return home, consider learning more about the shoulder-to-shoulder and interfaith witness strategy of gathering together in responses to religious violence. We have found that the local media is extremely interested in positive stories that connect with national and international news. Finally, in my talks around the country about ISIS-ISIL, many of Christian groups, they have asked me, what can I do? I feel so helpless. What can I do? And so a new initiative that began this summer is Prayer Partners for Peace, in which we are asking Muslims and Christians as individuals and as communities to commit to praying for one another. Prayer is powerful, and I know that you are a praying community. So let me humbly ask that you let Christian groups in your communities know that you're praying for them and ask them to pray for you. I believe that this will shock many people. And what I have found as we presented this, it has shocked many people. There's a look of like, what? And then the shock passes. And there's a realization that, of course, this would be God's will, that we would pray for one another, to encourage one another for greater devotion and submission to God. Again, thank you for this opportunity to be with you. Peace be with you all.